Cannabis Common Sense, the show that tells the truth about marijuana and the politics behind its prohibition.
Hello and welcome to another exciting edition of Cannabis Common Sense. We have a great show for you tonight. We have a representative from Students for Sensible Drug Policy from Lewis and Clark University, Chris Van Patten, and we have Cliff Duvall from Texas Normal. And we'll be back with our guests and taking viewers' phone calls shortly. We have a good hemp news segment for you tonight and reports from the Hempstock Festival, including a video of yours truly giving a brief talk. And standing by in the wings is Mr. Tim Pate, who worked around the clock virtually.
Pretty much.
To help put on our Hempstock Festival last week. We'll be talking a little bit more about that in just a few minutes. But first, we're going to bring out our infamous dancing, cannabis, leaves. Ta-da. Here they are.
I feel the force.
All right, our first story tonight comes from Washington, D.C. Congressional Representative Stephen Cohen, a Democrat from the state of Tennessee, the volunteer state, is urging the Obama administration to reclassify cannabis under federal law and to acknowledge its therapeutic utility, according to a September 12th letter sent by the congressman to the White House Office of National Drug Control Policy, the ONDCP, also known as the Drug Czar. Why we have a czar in the United States is beyond me. I thought that was a despotic Russian ruler. Representative Cohen states this in his letter to drug czar Gil Kurlikowski, former Seattle police chief, now a czar. He said, quote, marijuana does not belong on Schedule 1 of the Controlled Substances Act, or the CSA, alongside hard drugs such as heroin. There's no evidence that marijuana has the same addictive qualities or damaging consequences as these harder drugs, and it should not be treated as such. Similarly, the so-called gateway theory has been thoroughly discredited with respect to marijuana. Marijuana ought to be placed at the lowest end of the Controlled Substances Act in accordance with its true risks, end quote. Under federal law, all substances classified as Schedule 1 drugs under the CSA must possess a high potential for abuse and have no accepted medical use in treatment. Representative Cohen adds, quote, I was particularly disappointed that the Office of National Drug Control Policy dismissed the medical benefits of marijuana. We should not deny the thousands of Americans who rely on marijuana the benefits that it provides. I strongly recommend that this administration allow states that have chosen to legalize medical marijuana to enact strong regulations without fear of prosecution. We should not interfere with the will of the people to enact these compassionate laws, end quote. Representative Cohen is an outspoken critic of marijuana prohibition, obviously. He's a co-sponsor of H.R. 2306. That's H.R. 2306, the Ending Marijuana Prohibition Act of 2011. Actually, it's Ending Federal Prohibition of Marijuana Act of 2011. That's the end of that story. Elvie Musica, one of the 4 people who receives medical marijuana legally, was detained in Ontario, Oregon earlier this week. She was held for a couple of hours as a state trooper who has been monitoring a medical marijuana meeting pulled her over, found her marijuana, and detained her. He did not believe her federal prescription was real. She was subsequently released. But the incident's still being investigated, but so far the Ontario, Oregon authorities have refused to turn her federal medical marijuana supply. Our next story is out of Berkeley, California. Former United States Labor Secretary Robert Reich voiced his strong support for ending the criminal prohibition of cannabis during an online forum. Reich was asked by an audience member, quote, if you could eliminate a single federal regulation and replace it with some other regulation or nothing at all, what would it be and why? He responded, quote, I'd start by legalizing marijuana, end quote. Wright made this comment last week on the popular website reddit.com. That's REDDIT.com. Robert Reich served as Secretary of Labor under former President Bill Clinton. He's presently a professor of public policy at the University of California at Berkeley. Right on, Robert Reich. Our next story is about alcohol prohibition, and it's out of Caen, France. These observations show that stimulation of the endocannabinoid systems could be protective against the hyperexcitability developed during alcohol withdrawal. The administration of the synthetic cannabinoid agonist U212 decreases nerve cell death in an in vitro model of ethanol withdrawal, according to data published online in the Journal of Public Library of Science, or PLOS1. An international team of investigators from INSERM Medical Research Center in Caen, France, and Complutense University in Madrid, Spain, assessed the effective excitotoxic effect of synthetic cannabinoid U211 in culture. The researchers demonstrated that cannabinoid administration protects neurons from cell death in an experimental model of ethanol withdrawal. By contrast, the administration of cannabinoid agonist and rimnabant during ethanol withdrawal greatly increased the likelihood of cell death. The authors concluded, quote, "These observations show for the first time that the stimulation of the endocannabinoid system could be protective against the hyperexcitability developed during alcohol withdrawals. By contrast, the blockade of endocannabinoid system seems to be counterproductive during alcohol withdrawal." End quote. In humans, the abrupt cessation of alcohol in dependent subjects may be associated with tremor, delirium, brain damage, and death. Separate preclinical studies have previously documented that the administration of the non-psychotropic organic cannabinoid cannabidiol, or CBD, in laboratory animals is neuroprotective against cerebral infarction and ethanol-induced neurotoxicity, or alcohol poisoning. In 2009 and 2010, a pair of studies conducted by investigators at the University of California at San Diego reported that the consumption of cannabis may offset certain alcohol-induced brain abnormalities, including the loss of white matter integrity and memory in human subjects with a history of both alcohol and marijuana abuse. The full text of this study, pharmacological activation, inhibition of the cannabinoid system affects alcohol withdrawal-induced neuronal hypersensitivity to excitotoxic insults, end quote, appears online in the Journal of Public Policy 1. Our last story tonight is out of Kalamazoo, Michigan. Kalamazoo voters will decide this November on a municipal initiative that seeks to make marijuana law enforcement the city's lowest priority. The proposed amendment to Kalamazoo's city charter seeks to make the possession of an ounce or less of marijuana by adults age 21 or older the city's lowest law enforcement priority. The initiative is modeled after a similar measure that was enacted by Seattle voters in 2003. A review of that measure in 2008 reported that the implementation of the Seattle ordinance was associated with reduction in local law enforcement costs and, quote, no evident increase in marijuana use among youth and young adults, end quote. Voters in Tacoma, Washington will also vote on a similar proposal this fall. Michigan's Governor Rick Snyder and Attorney General Bill Schuett have spoken out against this measure. Seattle's deprioritization measures have previously been approved by voters nationwide, including our separate deprioritization amendments have been approved in other cities such as Oakland, California, and Denver, Colorado. Since 1972, the city of Ann Arbor, Michigan has imposed a local ordinance classifying minor marijuana possession as a civil infraction rather than a criminal misdemeanor, as is called for under state law. In 2008, 63% of Michigan's voters approved Proposition 1, which legalized the limited use and cultivation of cannabis by patients who possess a physician's recommendation. Well, that's the end of our hemp news segment tonight. How are you doing, Tim?
I'm tired, Paul.
I'm tired, too. I stumbled over some of those words a bit more than I usually do.
Yeah, usually you just write through that. I'm amazed at some of those complicated words you have, 8-syllable words, not 4.
Yeah, big words like mayonnaise.
I know. All them French ones, that's it. That's what gets us confused. It was a wonderful week last week, I have to say. It truly was. I've lost my voice a little bit. You can hear that, too.
Yeah. Well, you were working round the clock. You were running up and down across a 5-mile area out to the end of the parking lot, to the end of the park.
I was truly amazed at the level of participation by the public in our event this last week. On Saturday, we had parking 4.5 miles on both sides of the highway all the way out to the Expo Center from our event. So I have to apologize to everybody who had to walk because...
And we didn't have enough buses, unfortunately.
We didn't have enough buses. We didn't have any idea we were going to get that level of participation from the public. It was just amazing.
Packed on Saturday. It was a little bit less so on Sunday.
Packed.
Saturday's always the big day.
It's true. And Sunday was a little less of the pressure, but still a wonderful party all the way to the end. So I have to say thank you to everyone who came and all those people who helped us clean up, because the cleanup was very well participated in, and I had to help till the very end, to the last piece of paper, and I just want to say thank you to everyone who was there and everyone who had a good time, and all of the folks that sponsored us, including THCF and the Greenleaf Labs.
Now, THCF is actually the organization that puts it on, but
yes,
in addition sponsors it.
And big time.
Yeah.
So it helps. So without it, we wouldn't be able to do it.
Now, if you go up to Seattle at the Seattle Hemp Fest, THCF's the presenting sponsor.
That's it.
But in Portland, we are actually the producer and promoter.
That's
of
true.
The event.
Yes, that's all true. And so there we are. We had a good time, and I hope everyone else did too. It was just one of those events, and so one last thought: if you lost some stuff there, we have some stuff. Stuff comes back to us. It could be a wallet stuff, a purse stuff, key stuff, cell phone stuff. If you got stuff and you can describe your stuff to us, you might be able to get your stuff back. Just wanted to say that. So. Anyway,
you got a song for us.
I've got something. Yeah, it's just about harvest time, so sit back and watch the plants.
I'm getting
and
ready
think
for
about
the high
what's about
holiday
to
of
happen.
Halloween.
Oh yeah, it's coming. Pumpkin time.
Pate on guitar.
Thank you, folks.
He's going to jump over and through the magic of television suddenly appear beside me. This little desk, and we have a couple of guests I'll introduce momentarily. But if you have a question about ending adult marijuana prohibition, restoring industrial hemp, or helping medical marijuana patients, give us a call. You can call us at that number right there on your screen. There it is. 503-288-4448. That's 503-288-4448. So I'd like to welcome Mr. Chris Van Putten. You're a representative of Students for Sensible Drug Policy from Lewis and Clark University.
I am. Lewis and Clark College, our undergraduate side of the campus. Interesting that you say university, because we actually also have a law school chapter of Students for Sensible Drug Policy that has also just started up.
All right.
So we have
known a number of people to go to that law school.
Absolutely, absolutely.
An attorney who represents us teaches the nonprofit law class there.
Wonderful, wonderful. I'm sure our SSDP founder at our law chapter, Bradley Steinman, is probably having in some of his courses.
Maybe so,
Very
especially
cool.
if he's looking into nonprofit law. She would be the one. She wrote the textbook too.
There you
Oregon Nonprofit Handbook.
Oh, wow.
Wonderful. That's great. Wonderful.
And we also have Mr. Cliff Duval of Texas Normal. Welcome, Cliff.
Thank you very much, Paul. It's a
Good to
pleasure to
have
be
you.
here.
I don't know if our viewers know this, but I am actually a Texan at heart. I was born in Houston, Texas, and grew up in Dallas, Texas, in Garland, Texas, a suburb of Dallas, until I was 15 in 1975. And I've only been back for 1 day since then.
Wow.
But I might change that a little bit later this month, next month. But outside of going through the Houston airport a couple of times. That doesn't really count, does it?
Not really.
That's not Dallas anyway.
No, if you stay in DFW, then you're in Texas. But Houston, you're kind of out there in the middle of the Gulf.
Kind of like out there in the bayous, right?
Yeah, close enough.
Well, that's going to be true if the planet keeps warming. Because
the Gulf will come to you.
Yeah, the Gulf is coming.
Yeah.
I mean, Texas is under a severe drought, the worst drought they've had.
Oh, it's very terrible.
Horrifying drought.
We've had a lot of fires, just brush fires all over the place, burn.
Did they
burn
break that
bans.
record in Dallas for the most days with consecutively over 100 degrees?
40 days or more.
We had 65 days of over 100-degree temperature, and so far to date, we've had over 87.
Over 87.
Yeah,
Oh, my word.
So they have broken that record.
Yes.
Okay,
They've
well,
broken many records.
That's
this
a record
summer.
you don't really want to break.
No.
No.
But it's
And
always
one you
hot in
can't
Texas.
control. You have no control any longer of that.
Well, not unless you.
But you're
really
used to
wanna-
it there. I remember any August, it was always over 100 every day in August.
Yes.
That's just the way it is in Dallas. You know, I grew up with that. God, I'd melt there today.
Yeah.
But it's not supposed to last till October.
You're right.
And in terms of marijuana policy, Texas is just one of the worst places in the country. I mean, you can get worse if you go north to Oklahoma, though.
That's right.
Yeah, that's correct.
Thank you.
Unfortunately, they made us number 2. I guess that's a better thing. But I'm going to run for House of Representatives in 2012. So
The State House or the
Yes.
federal Congress?
the State House in Texas. They didn't run with the proposal I gave them, so I thought, well, if our own voted-in representatives
As a
will not
Democrat?
listen to us, independent.
As an independent. Like Gatewood Galbraith of Kentucky running for governor.
Yeah. And so
All right.
if they won't listen to us, become a representative.
That's
Become
good.
involved, and I'll present the bill myself.
That's right.
All right. We are taking your phone calls tonight. We have a caller who's been standing by. Welcome to the show, caller.
Hello.
Good evening.
Howdy.
Hello.
Welcome to the show.
Hi, Paul, Tim.
Good evening.
This is Nick. Can you hear me?
Hey, Nick.
Yes, we can.
Now I recognize your voice.
I did your golf cars this year, and I wanted
you
to
did.
say to all the people that drove golf carts for me, it was a great success, and thank you. And to all those people that dropped off their dollar and paid willingly, we say thank you also, because I feel that without them, we couldn't have done it at all.
That's true.
I appreciate that, Nick. You know, if you're going to give a shout out to all those folks who help support our Hempstock Festival, I'd like to give a shout out and thanks also to the patients that allow us to exist and sponsor events and pay our bills, the folks who come in to the THCF medical clinics. So we'd like to thank you for helping support us so that we can try to change the world and restore hemp and legalize marijuana. And thanks to all the volunteers who helped at Hempstock as well. And thanks to you, Mr. Tim Pate,
My pleasure.
for helping organize everything.
It really
for
is my
months.
pleasure. I stood on the stage at 4 in the morning and everything else was quiet. I could hear the morning birds singing, and I felt as proud as I could be, and that's an awful word to use in any context, I think, but of us as a family, because the beautiful scene that I saw sitting out in front of me, all these tents, just all of them just gorgeous, and the stage is all ready, and the lights man, he's still awake, and he's playing with his digital lights, trying to get them perfect for the next night, and it's just one of those moments when you know that all things have come together and it's peaceful and we're about to have another day of party, and I just felt really grateful for the family and everybody that was involved. You know, you get few peaceful moments once the crowd is in there, as you know. It's just, it goes crazy. And but because of all of the good help on all of the teams that we have, we're able to manage 50,000 people in a sardine can. And that's what kind of how it felt for some folks out there because of the heat. I know that, but it was a wonderful event. I'm sure you agree.
It was great.
It was just
It was
something
great.
else.
You know, it's magic to some degree. You know,
It
and I
is.
think that while it's going on, you know, in a couple of days, this park's gonna be empty again.
As it is now.
People
Yeah.
walking through
Yeah.
there probably don't even know that anything like that happened there.
I
But it's a
know.
beautiful location, right at the confluence of the Willamette and the Columbia River, the two largest rivers of the West. So, you still there, Nick?
I'm still here. I just wanted to, like I said, say thank you, and then
You
I was
bet.
going to get off the air.
All right.
bet,
Thank
man.
you,
Your
Nick.
show.
Thanks for helping get everybody moved around in those golf carts.
One of our captains of
How many
industry.
golf carts do we have? 22?
Well, all told, we had 26 with all of them, but I had like 12 running people at all times.
And we could have used more, I know.
Yes.
There were a lot of people that walked a long, long
Yes,
way.
they did. Yes, they did.
Yeah.
So you guys have a good show, and
Thank
I'm going
you.
to go get ready for a little later.
All right. Thanks.
Bye.
Getting ready for our infamous after party. But so, Chris,
Yes.
tell us about Students for a Sensible Drug Policy, also known as SSDP.
Yep, that it is. Well, we're an international organization. Actually, we have chapters in a variety of different countries, including Brazil and Ireland now, and there are around 150 chapters around the world, most of them in the United States, and it's a similar organization to the Drug Policy Alliance, except it's centered around students. We work a lot with reforming marijuana laws, but we look at drug policy and the war on drugs as a whole. So we're a little bit more a little kind of comprehensive. We work with students. So our board of students is at least two-thirds students. So it ensures a very youth attitude and kind of commitment into the organization.
Notice your shirt says, "The war on drugs is a war on us."
Yes, it does.
You got a little stamp, self-actualize. I am always striving for self-actualization. I even have that on my Facebook page. So that's one of my goals, is constantly striving for self-actualization. You also have DPA on there, a little DPA stamp for Drug Policy Alliance.
It is. A little reminder.
You're stamped.
I am.
It's not a real tattoo, but it looks like a permanent marker.
It is.
Sharpie.
I like consistently reminding myself.
That's good. That's good. Reminds me. Who's looking right there? Anyway, we have another phone call. Welcome to our show, caller. Hello, caller.
Hello, Paul.
Hello.
I got a question
Welcome.
on medical marijuana card use in Oregon for employers.
Sure. Go ahead.
So you wonder, say that again, please?
If you, for medical marijuana card people in Oregon, if you had any advice on how to deal with employers.
One thing to do is to get a prescription for Marinol or synthetic THC. And then it makes it very difficult for them to differentiate between organic cannabis and synthetic cannabis. Very expensive as well. But some employers still attempt to run those extra multi-$100 tests to detect other cannabinoids. The best thing you can do is to not mention it at all till you get to the person who actually administers the drug test, and then show them your medical marijuana if you know you're going to test positive. Actually, the best thing you do is just, if you know you're going to test, abstain for 30 days before that test. But if that's not possible, then wait till you get to the test, then show them your medical marijuana permit to the person who actually administers the test. In fact, give them a copy of it. And then go ahead and submit to the test if you have to do that. You know, I like to say that no longer do we live in the land of the free. We live in the land of the pea, where our bodily fluids are up for inspection. You know, if that doesn't invade your right to privacy and Fourth Amendment rights, I don't know what does. But
like I say, it comes down to what the good book says. You know, they judge us. It's like Christ says, Christ will judge you by your heart, not by your pee. I mean, come on.
Yeah, I seriously doubt there's any religion on this planet that is in favor of turning over your urine for chemical analysis. Right. But it's a bizarre practice, and hopefully when we legalize marijuana, we'll bring that to an end, along with drug forfeiture and no-knock raids, and we can expand natural individual rights. You know, one of the things that I like to remind people is cannabis is a bellwether issue for the future of freedom for humanity, and that if the laws against cannabis aren't stricken down soon, the future consequences are dire. In fact, I think a film clip we'll run for the Hempstock will address just that point.
Yeah, because that was my question. You know, it's not something that you have to be in it yourself. It's not for everybody, Paul. You got to be into it. And for me, the easy choice was green, because the white it's just all the doctors, if you've got something wrong, chronic sciatica, all they want to do is feed you a pill.
They want to give you a pill that the pharmaceutical company wants to make a lot of money on, and that's why they support the politicians who, like Rick Perry, who got like $400,000, but then asked whether he can be bought for $5,000. That happened in a Republican debate this week, even though he didn't admit he was getting $400,000. So he's obviously been bought for $400,000.
Well,
But
one thing too, I got
a Texas governor. You're a governor.
Yes.
It's your fault. You didn't vote for him,
Quite
right?
a snake oil salesman.
Yeah.
Haven't we had enough Texas governors in the White
I
House?
think there's been one too many
so.
already.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, it's terrible that they put us through these humiliating and degrading urine tests, and that's why we're fighting for freedom and to end the adult marijuana prohibition.
Well, yeah, because I got pretty much caught for reasonable suspicion on the job, but it wasn't because of course your glassy eyes and everything, but at the end of the day, it's because somebody saw you and reported it. So at the end of the day, I'd like to understand, what would you be able to do to function on 24 hours a day?
Right.
Would you be able to have something that would keep you motivated, kept you happy, kept you smiling, and be able to constantly perform on a job instead of have something that was, synthetic like white and would make you tired?
Right on the money, man.
The ironic thing is that all the studies that's actually looked at it have found that most workers who use marijuana have less absenteeism, are more productive, and in general are better workers. So they're shooting themselves in the foot, but that's the way it is in early 21st century America.
I think government shoots themselves in the foot a lot with marijuana policy.
Yes, they do.
If you had to handle it, where would you start? If you're an honest person, I think you need to start with who you are. But like you say, when you get there, if you're at the hospital and you have to give them the specimen, that's when you say, hey, look. But my other question would be with that is, what is the hours of the operation? A doctor told me 12 hours before. What are the rules?
Well, if you inhale cannabis, it's between 1 and 4 hours. You mean the length of the duration of psychoactive effect. If you inhale it, it's between 1 to a maximum of 4 hours. And if you eat it, it's up to 8 hours.
Yeah, and that's the better way
4
to
to
go,
8 hours.
too, isn't it?
Depends on what
Eating
you need.
is better, but the thing about it is, it's what gets you high in marijuana. The THC isn't the medicine for most conditions. THC is a useful medicine for anxiety and depression, which aren't covered in most states, any state but California. But for as an appetite stimulant in conjunction with chemotherapy or large doses of antiviral drugs that people with HIV have to take. It's an anti-nauseant or anti-emetic, and it is an appetite stimulant, which I always like to remind people is a bad thing for me. But CBD is another compound, and that's the main medicinal compound in cannabis, and that's good for pain, spasms, seizures, neuroprotective diseases, and gastrointestinal ailments. So they don't even test for the CBD.
So as far as being on the OMMP law, there's no law that you know of before work. Is it so many hours before or before?
No, in fact, the courts have ruled against patients who have gone all the way to the Oregon Supreme Court to try to get their right to use cannabis off the job. So for those drug tests. So unfortunately, that's where we're at right now.
Still need to continue to get out there and vote and just continually discreet.
We have a petition in circulation right now. We have 34,000 signatures plus. It's the Oregon Thanks for giving me that great segue, by the way.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Paul.
Yeah, thanks for calling. Okay. We have the Oregon Cannabis Tax Act petition. There is the website, cannabistaxact.org. And you can go to that website and print out our petition. We now have 34,000 signatures. We need 87,232 valid registered Oregon voter signatures by next July to qualify for a vote by November of 2012. So we're Technically, over a quarter of the way there. We need to get about 130,000 in total to cover the signatures that aren't legible and that aren't actually registered to vote, because only Oregon voters are supposed to, only your Oregon voters' signatures count. If you're not an Oregon voter, your signature doesn't count on this petition. But, and the state does validate some. So we urge you to get the petition. You can print it out there, and you can even make a donation to us. You know, donations are very helpful. In fact, there is a way where if you're an Oregon taxpayer, you can make us a loan that the state will pay back. There's an Oregon tax credit. That's not a deduction. That's a tax credit where you'll get back up to $50 per person, $100 for married couples filing jointly. It's called a political tax credit. If you make a donation to any Oregon political committee, you get a tax credit of up to $50. So if you donate $50 to our petition and you report that on your Oregon income tax next year, the state of Oregon will pay that back. Either you'll pay less taxes or they'll give you a larger deduction, or a larger refund, I should say. But thanks for your question. We are going to jump over and run a little film clip, and we'll be back in just a moment. See this guy. He talks too much.
You know, it was about 2 years ago that 2 years ago yesterday that Jack Herer gave his last speech from this stage. Jack Herer wrote a book called The Emperor Wears No Clothes right here in Portland back in 1985. We call this stage the Jack Herer stage. And, you know, today is also 9/11. So it was 10 years ago that a lot of people died back on the East Coast. And so we're coming up on 4/20, and we just want to remember a couple other people. Dr. Todd McAree also got to talk from this stage. He wrote a book about cannabis. And Ben Mazzell, a famous Wisconsin activist, spoke on this stage last year, and he passed away earlier this year from cancer. So I don't want to give anybody a bummer here at 420. But we're here to mark important occasion. You know, we want to see hemp restored. Hemp is one of the oldest crops grown by people. Everybody agrees that marijuana was among the first few crops that people started growing at least 12,000 years ago. And it produces more food, protein, that meets human nutritional needs better than any other protein out there. It produces more fuel, biodiesel fuel from its seeds, and ethanol from its leaves and stalks. And from these hemp stalks, and this is the official hemp stalk of hemp stock here, 3 years old. From the stalks, it produces more paper, more fiber, more building materials than any other plant. So we're here to legalize hemp, and we're doing it through an initiative petition. There's a petition booth right over there. I want to urge you guys, if you're registered to vote, to sign the petition. If you're not registered to vote, now is the time. We've got to take control. It's your duty, you know. You can't stand around and say, when are they going to legalize marijuana, because they're never going to do it. We're going to have to do it, you know. It's going to take us all working together, you know, no doubt about it. It's not going to happen, you know, unless we all get out there and represent and educate. So I urge you to sign the petition. If you can, get some signatures on the petition. There's some petitions over there. And, you know, I hope are you guys ready for 420? Yeah! Well, you know, it's less than a minute away, according to my clock. So, you know, we're here for freedom and liberty, too. You know, our right to our freedom of consciousness, to be happy here on this planet, is one of the other things we're fighting for. You know, right now, there's really a rapid growth in genetic technology and gene information. There's rapid growth in nanotechnology as they miniaturize all sorts of things. There's a rapid growth in artificial intelligence. Within a lot of our lifetimes, most of you guys out there, computers are going to be pretty darn smart. And if we don't protect individual rights, then the future is dire. You know, things like the Matrix and the Terminator are possibilities. So we have to protect our right, freedom of consciousness, and expand natural individual rights. And I think marijuana is a bellwether issue on that. The fact that they've taken the oldest crop, the one that produces more fuel, more food, more fiber, and more medicine than any other plant, and they made that one illegal, it's wrong. So we're going to have to get active. I'm counting on you. Happy 420, and we'll be back. Restore hemp.
They were really smoking out there, weren't they? That was quite a cloud.
Oh my goodness, that was something else.
There.
That was something else.
Anyway, we have a caller who's been standing by. Welcome to the show, caller. Hello, caller.
Hello, how are you?
Good.
Very well. How are you doing?
This is Steve. I told you I called once before recently.
Cool.
Hi, Steve.
I gotta get out of the room here.
Okay.
Anyway, but we talked about how I was just coming out of the closet and just gonna put my plants outside, put plastic around them, and that'd be enough. And you thought maybe you should come see them because they might get taller than that.
Did they get too tall?
Feet. Well, I think I'm going to be safe at 12 feet. But the reason I called was, you talked several times about Kaiser and their pain management and their position on medical marijuana.
They've done their head office down in California has said that their doctors can recommend medical marijuana in Oregon and Colorado and other states that have medical marijuana programs. Now, that doesn't mean that all the doctors know about that, and a lot of doctors turn away patients and say they can't do it. And some doctors just don't believe in it, and they're afraid that somehow they'll suffer some sort of repercussions for recommending medical marijuana. That's just out of ignorance on the physician's part. Actually, doctors are protected by federal court rulings for any threats to their license based solely upon recommending medical marijuana. But the head Kaiser office has said that their doctors in medical marijuana states are authorized to do it, and Kaiser did the largest epidemiological study on cannabis in history. They looked at 70,000 marijuana smokers and 50,000 non-smokers for a whole range of conditions, every possible condition. And the only thing that marijuana smokers had more of, statistically, was bronchitis or a cough. And I can tell you, as someone who switched to a vaporizer almost 10 years ago, that my cough went away completely within a few weeks of switching to a vaporizer. But anyway.
I was going to mention that too. And I do have that policy and procedure. I've got their policy on that. But recently I was referred there and just saw the physician there at that time. And you know what she tried to tell me? She tried to tell me, well, there's 500 carcinogenics in there, and
not that it protects you from cancer. And so she was reading old research that's been discredited.
So she tells me that you know, and I say no, that's because I'd already told her that stopping it wasn't the option. Later in the conversation, she told me I might have to just find another healthcare system, which I of course laughed at. But you
should talk to her supervisor.
Yes.
And give them a copy of Kaiser's policy, which you can get offline, and some news reports on that epidemiological study. It's about 10 years ago now.
It sounds like that doctor needs some education.
Because I will be taking, because I took her on there, she was taken aback that I would question her.
Yeah, right, of course.
Her knowledge.
They're gods.
Later,
In their own little realm, they're
gods.
gods.
About cancer. There's not, okay, those numbers might not be right, but she gave me some numbers or something else, and I told her she was wrong.
You're less likely to get lung cancer if you smoke marijuana than if you never smoke anything at all. That's what the studies show.
Okay, those are the most recent studies.
That's right.
Now, where do you think I'd find that stuff?
Online. You can go to the search engine Google or any of those others out there.
We've referenced them on our past shows as well.
We have, but
shameless plug?
Sure. A shameless plug over here.
A shameless plug.
Great.
Go to cannabiscompendium.com.
There you go.
It's a one-stop know-it shop. Basically, it's not a social site. It's an educational site. And we put it together in February, and it is worldwide now. And so if you have questions, you can always submit questions to it, and we will try to get back to you within a 24-hour period.
CannabisCompendium.com.
Cannabiscompendium.com.
Very good.
That sounds great. It sounds like I'll be able to get a lot of good information there.
Answer
Because
some
like
questions.
I said, this is getting totally ridiculous, and I'm taking on the Kaiser system.
Right.
So, that being said, I'll let you go. I was
All
going
right.
to call your office, Paul, and see if we could make an appointment, but I'll do that next week.
All right.
Thanks
Thank
for
you.
everything, you guys.
Thanks for calling.
Bye.
Thank you.
Good night. So we have a couple of guests on tonight. Chris Van Putten of Students for a Sensible Drug Policy, and Cliff Duval of Texas Normal. Tell us more about what's going on in Texas right now with your Normal chapter and how it is in the belly of the beast.
It's, well, with the weather and being the belly of the beast, we live in hell. But, it can be.
I remember a few years back in all of Northern California was aflame, and it was awesome. You couldn't even see a half a mile, so I know it's bad. You've got bad fires in Texas, but they happen periodically
They
in
happen
different
quite
places.
a lot.
They're up here
and
as well.
We're water rationing,
we get 'em
and can only
occasionally.
water my lawn twice a week now, and things like that. But you get up in the morning, you walk outside, and you smell smoke, and hope it's not too close.
That's right.
Right.
And that's been a big problem. But as far as the cannabis movement and the hemp movement in Texas, our House Bill 548, which was our decrim bill that came up in the last legislative session, had the most emails and phone calls on it of any other bill of any other state. And unfortunately, the Criminal Jurisprudence Committee decided to hold it back.
Of course.
What I really found kind of saddening is that for murder one in Texas, you can actually get probation from a jury and deferred adjudication from the judge. And it would be like you never had a criminal record at all for murder one. But if you get caught with one seed that's with intent to manufacture and distribute. That's 25 years.
I grew up in Texas, as I mentioned earlier, till I was 15. I was born in Texas, lived there till I was 15. I often tell people you can take the kid out of Texas, but you can't take Texas out of the kid.
That's true.
But when I first started smoking marijuana there, I was 11 in Dallas, and at that point, the death penalty was it was unconstitutional there for a period before the Supreme Court reinstituted it in the mid-70s. But at that time, the person, who was a Vietnam veteran who first smoked marijuana with me, if he had been arrested for smoking marijuana with me, he would have been put in jail for 3 times longer on average than he would have been put in jail if he had murdered me.
Exactly.
So that's Texas law for you.
That's backward thinking, unfortunately. And
so I appreciate you there working for
for
legalization.
Well, I presented a proposal to the Senate for a medical bill before this last legislative session, but unfortunately the political climate was not right. That's what I was told. So I'll present it myself.
Makes me wonder
Okay.
what not right really means.
Good luck in your fight there for state office. I hope you're able to get the word out. We are going to take a question from LK, photographer extraordinaire and a studio audience member. Hi, LK.
Hey, Paul. Thanks for taking my question. First, I want to thank Tim and you and P. Steve for all of your efforts. It turned out, and everybody that volunteered. It was amazing. But my question is, you've answered this last year, too. There's a lot of people that are having problems with their powdery mildew. Can you please inform them on how to deal with this?
There's a few ways to deal with it. One is there are some enzymes that will eat powdery mildew, so you can use those enzymes. That's an organic control. Another way is you cover it with so that the rain and drizzle that we tend to get, like we started here the past day or so, doesn't get on those buds. And another thing you can do is go out first thing in the morning and shake that dew off of those plants. That moisture and dew that forms overnight can help the mold and powdery mildew and fungus. So we urge you to get out there if you're growing outdoors like I love to do. And you want to make sure you don't have mold and mildew. Get out there first thing in the morning and shake that stuff, the dew, off the plants. And those are some of the best things. If you have powdery mold and mildew, one way to deal with it outside of the enzymes that will eat it is to burn sulfur near it. And the sulfur fumes will kill the mold and mildew. You don't want to do that within a couple of weeks of harvest, though, because it might give the bud some sulfur residue.
What's your pH too? It helps.
That's true. And you can use acidic water. Water with a acid pH will help. So thanks for that question. Now we have a caller on the telephone. Welcome to the show, caller.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello, you're on the air.
Welcome.
Yes, my question is, I'm a card holder and I live in an apartment complex. And ever since this non-smoking came out, they have warned people about that. They recently came out with a one-page, about 250 word rule on medicinal marijuana. They will not, cannot, and won't make any kind of exception for those kind of
All
rules.
I can say is you have to stay in the closet. You know, don't ask, don't tell. It's just like it was until the past month or two for gays in the military. Don't tell them. If they ask, don't admit. You know, you know, we just have, if your housing is at risk, then the best thing you can do at this point is hide, and to go get our Oregon Cannabis Tax Act petition to completely legalize marijuana, and that will bring an end to it. And that's another way to take action and get registered and vote. And be sure to vote for it when it's on the ballot next year.
Yeah, we've got to make some changes. And
Well, I look forward to that.
And write letters to the local people and tell them that you think this is wrong. And write to our representative. Now, Representative Earl Blumenauer, our congressman for here in Portland, supports ending marijuana prohibition, supports medical marijuana, and supports industrial hemp. So we love Earl Blumenauer here at Cannabis Common Sense. But other people in the United States Congress have yet to be swayed. So we talked about at the top of the show, Tennessee Democrat Steve Cohen, and he's working to end adult prohibition, marijuana prohibition. So we just have to keep lobbying, voting, and telling the truth to power.
Another thing is that a lot of the
Well, I guess I have no other option than to hide and
it's a shame.
It's a shame because
especially if you paid the money and you have a permit to legally use marijuana under state law, for them to try to say that somehow the federal government's going to come into your room and get you for smoking marijuana. That's ridiculous. It's bullshit. I'll just say it plain and simple. So I'm sorry they're doing that to you. Go ahead, Chris.
Particularly if you look at the percentages now. Over 1/3 of the states have directly contradicted federal law.
That's right. That's right.
And it's phenomenal to say, you know, look at that percentage of the country, and over 1/3 of states directly contradicting. And with everything that's going on federally right now, you know, I'm very hopeful and looking and pushing for federal action as well.
Thanks for your question.
Thank you for being there, guys. Keep it up. I'm all for it. Anytime I find a list to sign for Cannabis Common Sense or anything to do with marijuana, I'll sign it.
All right, thank you. Well, we'll tell you, if you have a printer and a computer, or you know someone who does, you can go right to our website, which is popped up magically through the graphics generator there, and print that petition out, the cannabistaxact.org. You can just click on the button, print out a single signature sheet, sign that, and mail it in to us or take it into our office at 2712 Northeast Sandy. By the way, that office is now staffed from 11 to 7, Monday through Friday. So if you need to go by, you can pick up petitions there, sign the petition, and get involved in our work to end adult marijuana prohibition. That address, again, is 2712 Northeast Sandy Boulevard.
Well, since I've got a lot of time on my hands, I'm retired, I can probably run around with a petition and
Great.
get some...
Every hour you volunteer saves, basically is like donating $10. So, you know, because that's basically what we pay a paid petitioner to go do that for an hour. So we appreciate your support.
Get some signatures down at Pioneer Square because I live about 6 blocks from there.
Oh, great. That's one of the best places in town to get them.
Exactly.
All right. Thanks for your call.
Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Thank you. So, Chris, does your chapter of SSDP have a website up anywhere?
We do absolutely.
What is that site?
Well, you can go to, the easiest way to reach it is to go to lclark.edu, and then there's a search tool, and if you can just type in just the acronym SSDP, or if you remember the full thing, Students for Sensible Drug Policy, and our website will pop up there.
Great, great.
It lists a few different projects that we're working on, and also has quite a few different references.
I went to the rally you had down at Pioneer Courthouse Square. There were about 80 or 90 of us there protesting the drug war on the, what was it?
That was the 40th anniversary.
40th anniversary when President Nixon announced the war on drugs.
So sad.
Yeah.
That's essentially the speech that that our student organization was built to end, is directly to fight against the war on drugs.
Well, I know that when they imposed the restrictions on financial aid to students based upon a conviction for marijuana, that led to the founding of SSDP and gave impetus and motivated students to oppose the drug war.
Absolutely.
And that's still, tell us about the status of that.
Well, you mentioned financial aid, and that reminded me of the topic that we were talking about with Cliff, and it was kind of horrifying for me to think and actually realize that if a person commits violent crime or rape, they are able to go into a college atmosphere without having their financial aid revoked and without even having that on record. But still, so many places throughout the country, students are denied scholarships based off of having a cannabis-related offense.
Right. So I would just tell them, don't answer that question honestly. You know, I don't know what they can do. Maybe that's not the right answer, but that's what I would think.
We work very much to change policy.
I appreciate your
within
work
schools
on that,
as well as on all levels.
And you also worked on the initiative process up in Washington with Sensible Washington a couple of years ago.
I have.
I appreciate that.
The whole
So
country
what
needs
is
to
your
become sensible?
Well, that's what this show's about, cannabis common sense. So we share that with the Students for a Sensible Drug Policy. We're all about sense and Cincy here.
Yeah.
What is the website for Texas Normal, Cliff?
Our normal site is normalwacoinc.org. I'm incorporated with the Secretary of State, and
so that's NORMLWACOINC.org.
And the Cannabis Compendium is Cannabis Compendium, COMPENDIUM.com.
CannabisCompendium.com.
But we are working down in Texas trying to get things done. Hopefully the iceberg will flip.
Yeah. There is a caller. Caller, we are down to just a couple minutes here. We'll go ahead and take your question call. Do you have a brief question for us?
Yes, I do. First, this is P. Steve.
Hey, P. Steve.
First-time caller. But shout out to SSDP, right on. You guys supported me when I was under indictment, and I thank you all for that. But I wanted to mention that at the same time that Kaiser is allowing their doctors to to recommend medical marijuana in states where it's legal, at the same time, OHSU is beginning to restrict their doctors from doing exactly the same thing. And I'm wondering if you have any further information on that, and want people to call OHSU and tell them shame on them for harassing patients.
I agree. Thanks for bringing that up, Steve. Steve, by the way, is our stage manager at the Hempstock Festival, and he's a longtime activist from the great state of Wisconsin and worked on weed stock in the Great Midwest Marijuana Harvest Fest in Madison, Wisconsin.
Thanks, Paul.
Thank you.
Thank you,
and a
Steve.
good friend of Ben Mazzell, the late great activist that inspired me out of Madison, Wisconsin as well. Yes. So is there anything you'd like to say in closing, Chris? We're about out of time here.
Well, just that I've loved to be able to speak about Students for Sensible Drug Policy, and
well, you're welcome to come back.
Well,
frequently and speak more.
I have a great many things that I've yet to say as well.
All right, so we'll see you here sometime soon.
Absolutely.
And what about you, Cliff? You're going back to Texas soon?
I'll be leaving next week and getting ready to campaign for 2012. And just want to let everybody know that even though you might be a cannabis closet smoker in the voting booth, no one knows. So you need to become as involved as you possibly can.
I agree. You know, I refuse to vote for anyone who is going to put me in prison. So you don't have, just because you go in and vote doesn't mean you have to vote for everybody. If I don't know who a person is or who's written an election, I don't vote on that election. I vote on the things I want to vote on, and I leave the rest of it blank, you know. And also, if you're a felon here in the state of Oregon, you can still vote. As long as you're not locked up in jail, you can vote. As a marijuana felon myself, I not only have voted, I ran for office. But, you know, I want to thank you for watching another exciting edition of Cannabis Common Sense. We're going to go out on the spectacular musical accompaniment of Mr. Tim Pate. Get our petition, cannabistaxact.org. Help us change the world and restore hemp!